Welcome back to Golden Creatives Talk. This is the podcast where we have insightful, multidimensional conversations with inspiring Black and Brown creatives about their journey, their craft, and the narratives we're building. I'm your host, CT Luna, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking with Rochelle Shelly Dahmer. Shelly is a longtime educator who recently retired to start her own career. First, creating beautiful journals and planners, and just recently, a stunning nonfiction picture book, which we will get into later on. Shelley is a self published indie author, as her succinct and powerful Substack bio puts it, a creative late bloomer. She joins us from Mississippi, where she lives with her husband, Philip. And today we're going to be talking about the beautiful pivots of the creative life, the trials and triumphs of being a self published author, and the incredible importance of reclaiming and sharing historical narratives for a new generation. So, Shelley, welcome to Golden Creatives Talk.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here with you today to talk about being creative.
I'm so happy to have you join us. We've just had a wonderful conversation to lead up to this interview. So, let's start off with your remarkable career in education, teaching K through 12 all the way up to the college level. And that shift to full-time writing and publishing is significant. And how did that shift from teaching to being an entrepreneur play out for you?
Well, I was in the classroom and I was helping others be creative
Hmm.
for 25 years. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that I wanted to live my creative life. I wasn't real sure during those years how I would do it. But as retirement got closer and closer, I started researching and started reading and listening to podcasts. And I have all these books about writing because I knew that I wanted to have a creative life in that second part of my life. I didn't want to come home and just sit down and, be bored and just get old and die. I wanted to live my creative life, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
Wow, I love that you planned, and I love that you're bringing this up because you don't look it, but I'm going to assume your age is upwards of 50.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think it's hard for people who are in their 50s to think about kind of having like starting over.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you about this movement towards creativity. Did you feel like being a teacher wasn't creative or wasn't tapping into that? And also, how did you know what creativity looked like for you?
Right, right. Well, I mean, you have to be creative in the classroom because you have to
Hmm.
create lessons that are going to be appealing to your students. So I was being creative, but it felt like I was being creative for my students. And I
Oh.
wanted to be creative in my writing.
Mm.
And I had stories in my heart that I just couldn't release them until I finished up with my students. And
Mhm.
so once I finished up with my students, I was the teacher who gave 110%. And I know I did. I gave my students everything. And so
Mhm.
and I gave my children everything. My daughter is a nurse and my son is a doctor. And I immersed myself in my children and my students. So what did a girl have left? Not a whole lot to come home and write. But I still tried. There were days that I would try, but it didn't become reality until I retired. And I retired at 58. in 2022. And during that last year, I started thinking about creative living.
Mhm.
And I saw a quote by an author, and she talked about what creative living looked like. And she
Mm.
said creative living is learning more about yourself. And it was a number of different things that won't come to my mind right now, but I embraced that. And I said, that's how I want my retirement life. That's what I want it to look like. Learning new things, traveling, writing, creating stories, going out talking to students. And I and that's what every day I'm trying to create. Now, I'm still kind of living a soft life because I am retired and my husband and I we do travel and have fun, but I have this area here. This is my writing haven where I can come in here and create. And I'm 61 now. And I can tell you that I am definitely living a happy, creative life.
I'm getting goosebumps just hearing you speak like that. I had this awareness, and this is about you, so I'm going to keep my little anecdote short. But I had
Okay.
this awareness for myself about 15 years ago that
Mhm,
if I was going to have a career,
mhm.
have a job to report to, going on a daily basis to do something, I need to be passionate about it. Otherwise, I'm just kind of dying slowly,
Right, right,
prematurely.
right.
Um, and that's where I made that pivot to really focus and hone in on writing because, and I think that's when I quote that that you mentioned, creative living is learning more about yourself. And
Yeah,
I think that's why I lean towards writing because it really is about learning about yourself first and foremost as you learn about the things around you. Um,
right,
so it's one
right.
of the reasons why I love my job, even when my job can be like terrible and stressful, and
Yeah.
um, I love it. And in our chat earlier, you had also mentioned doing some journalism.
Yes,
So
yes.
tell us about that because teaching K through 12 is a full-time job and journalism is pretty intense as well.
Yeah.
So tell us
Well,
about that.
I was a journalism major in college.
Uh-huh.
And before I even graduated from college, I already had my foot in the door at a television station in my hometown because I grew up in Tyler, Texas. And so I did the weekend weather when I was a senior in college. And so after graduation, I went off to Abilene, Texas, and I was a news reporter and I did the weather on the weekends. And that company brought me to Mississippi to do their weather full time. So
Mm,
that's where my career ended because I was just a personality. I was not a meteorologist, but they wanted a full-time weather person. And so,
mhm,
life got off and I did different things. But here's the interesting part. 10 years after my career ended in television, I had the opportunity here in Hattiesburg to
mhm.
become a news reporter and a weekend news anchor, which was a dream. But here's the thing, I was already a teacher. And so my husband said, hey, take some time, follow your dream, have fun, and go and do your news thing. And so it was not even a job. I did that for 2 years. And after 2 years, he said, now, you got to retire. So it might be time to go back to the classroom. And
Mhm.
so I went back to the classroom. I was a little sad, but I went back to the classroom and I got back into teaching. And I lived my dream for that 2 years to be in television. But I had made a commitment to teaching, and when you're a teacher, you're on the same schedule with your kids.
Mm.
And that was really, really important to me. was
Mhm.
really important to me. So I went back to the classroom, and I do not regret that investment that I made into my daughter and my son, you know. So we went to school together, we came home together, and I knew I was in the right place when I came home. My son, he was probably in the first or second grade, and I said, "Okay, Donovan, do you want to get a snack and rest before you start your homework?" And he said, "No, I'm going to do my homework and then I'm going to get a snack and I'm going to watch TV." I knew I was in the right place because I started nurturing that. And
Mhm.
now he's a doctor. So I don't regret it. I don't regret it. Yeah. I don't regret
Wow.
it.
Wow. Wonderful. Well, and you were talking earlier about exercising your creativity in the classroom, and you were
Yes.
doing that for others.
Right.
And in the time that you transitioned to retirement, you and actually even leading up to retirement, you were already preparing yourself to invest in your creativity for yourself. Um, so let's start to talk about that journey from educator to author,
Right.
especially for our listeners who might be thinking about their own creative pivots, thinking about it at this stage in their life where they really can start all over again, or rather than all over again, I want to say all over anew.
I knew.
And
Yes.
yes, and because we're both Black, brown authors, we've
Mhm.
chosen this direction of self-publishing or, the indie authoring path.
Right.
And I know that this is a choice that so many creatives struggle with in terms of, um, should I do this? I don't have a lifetime of validation behind me to get started again at this late stage in my life, rather than anew. So, um, going into the question about the self publishing decision, what I guess maybe you kind of back self-publishing. What made you think about journals and planners and I guess publishing at all? And just starting to dip your toes into the creative waters.
Well, being a journalism major and a writer, I knew about the traditional publishing path. And I had always heard, "Oh, it's so hard. It's going to take you forever to get your book published." But that didn't really deter me initially, okay?
Hmm.
So I started sending out, query letters, and I looked for an agent. And I think that once I just feel like it was a young lady who, when I queried the publishing company about my nonfiction picture book biography, and she said, "Oh, we'll pass," in the email, that just kind of did something to me because I knew that I had a great story. And
Hmm.
so I just started researching how to self publish. And
Hmm.
it took some time. It took some time. It took some time to build up the confidence to actually step out there. But as I told you earlier, I started out with low content books because I
Hmm.
just wanted to see if I could research my way through the process. And if there was something that I couldn't do, I found Fiverr, which is a platform where you can find creatives, freelancers to help you accomplish your goals. And so I went through the research. I would have like YouTube videos on my favorites, and I would go back to those videos, go back to those videos until I
Hmm.
figured out how to self publish. And I had someone help me learn how to upload to Kindle Direct Publishing. And let me tell you, that was a beautiful day. when I received my first self-published, um, it was a teacher planner that I created. Um, when I got that in the mail, it was a beautiful day. But
Mhm.
that's why one of the things that I focus on my YouTube channel, I focus on helping. What I want to do is I don't want people to have to go through what I went through. I want to walk them through the self-publishing journey. So a lot of my videos are about, how do you do this thing? Because it can be overwhelming. But I've created a team of people who, I was able to find a reasonable editor.
Mhm.
And because I'm a part of this organization, it's a children's writers organization, and they provide, on a budget,
Mhm.
people who can assist you. And so I found my editor for, less than $300.
Oh,
And so,
nice.
but you can, I mean, and that wasn't on Fiverr, that was just through this organization. But that's what you have to do. You have to find the resources to help you through this self-publishing journey. But I want to help people. And so that's why it's so important to me because, if you have a story that's in your heart and you want to tell that story. With technology today and all the resources that we have, you should
Mhm.
be able to do that.
Wow, I'm getting goosebumps again. We are going to talk about your book, but I've
Okay.
got so many questions before that because
Okay.
I made some assumptions about your process. So you're saying that you started off by just experimenting with the publishing process through um, low content books like your teacher
Right.
planner and things like that.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and you were smart because then you realized, okay, I'm going to form a team, which is
Yeah.
actually a very entrepreneurial way of
Yeah.
thinking, which
I
is
didn't
to
really
have that
realize.
team. Well, I should have, you should be my CEO because I did everything the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay, so then because I've also had I've been writing for a long time, more than 15 years, but professionally and then on the side is I don't know, now it's I guess a side hustle, but writing something I've always done. But
Yeah.
in the early days when I wanted to do that professionally and I was exploring side hustling, I also went the trad route, a traditional route, by um, querying agents and also direct to publishing houses, um, and I felt the same way where I was like, I know that this is a legitimately good story idea, or this is a legitimately good, like there is a market that is looking for content like this, if it's nonfiction as well. And and so I started to look into self-publishing, but I was looking into long term, doing it the hard way. Um, because of that creative control aspect. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about the querying process. How long did you endure before you finally said, I want to go my own way?
Yeah. Probably not very long because I started out querying with a children's picture book that I had written
Hmm.
for my daughter. And, that was probably in like 96, 97 that I queried. And I got discouraged pretty quick. Once I had about two or three letters, I've heard people who could that they have so many rejection letters that they could like plaster their wall with it. But no, I I got discouraged pretty quick, and I just kind of put
Yeah.
it down, and I just started focusing on other things. But with my nonfiction picture book biography, once I got the rejection emails now,
Mhm.
I said, no, this is a story that must be told, a story that
Mhm.
must be told. And that was a story that had been in my heart for about 20 years
Okay.
because I knew the story and I thought, oh my gosh, children need to know about his sacrifices. But I had to get the manuscript just right. And
Mhm.
so once I finally got the manuscript just right and my family's approval, then that's when I started marching ahead and all the research that I had done came into play. But not very
Okay.
long. I got discouraged and I said, you know what? I can do this myself.
Yeah. And I guess, um, I'm about to go woo woo. It's bound to happen when we talk about creativity. I think creativity is the way for the universe to speak through you.
Oh,
The
yes.
universe, God, whatever, right? We're just really spirit's instrument,
I agree.
so that it can have a human experience for the time that we're able to grace this planet. And just hearing your story, it really inspires me because it it tells me how in tune you were with the story that you needed to tell, but actually going
Yes.
before that, like going that how aligned you are with your creative spirit that
Yeah.
you had to start embarking on this journey, whether it was low content creativity, then moving on and moving forwards with your picture nonfiction picture book. So I
Yeah.
think that's one thing I wanted to say about creativity and creative living. I believe that creativity needs space. It
Yeah.
needs space and it needs stillness, which is very hard and very hard to express space and stillness to learn more about yourself when you're
Right.
trying to crank out curriculum for the kids or trying to meet a deadline for your boss or whatever it is. I think I just want to acknowledge and thank you for listening to your heart and
Yes.
embarking on this journey, even in your late blooming days, which you are blooming. You're radiant. So we're going to talk about your non-picture book now because I just can't hold it in anymore. So your book,
Yes.
it is called "If You Don't Vote, You Don't." Vernon Dahmer's fight for equality.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so you pivoted into nonfiction. What sort of drew you to write this nonfiction as a picture book?
Right.
And tell us also about your uh, research process, how you got into that. I can tell that you had to get permission from your family, but there
Right.
has to be so much more than just getting permission from the family. So
Oh, right. Right.
tell
Yes.
us
Yes.
all the things.
Okay. So I am also a certified librarian. And so in 2007, I spent a year at an elementary school and I already had the story in my heart. I already had Vernon Dahmer's story in my heart, but I saw my elementary students, reading nonfiction picture book biographies. And I said in 2007, wow, Mr. Vernon needs a book on the shelf
Mm,
because he was such a brave man. And so at that time, I told my husband, I said, your grandfather needs a book. But the family was kind of resistant to it. And I understood because there
mhm,
were still a lot of things that had to happen with um, with Mr. Vernon's situation. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there were a lot of things that had to happen. So I had to sit on it, but I kept writing. I kept writing different manuscripts, and I would just present them to my husband, and he'd say, "Oh, Shelly, I don't know. Maybe you need to rethink this. Maybe you need to work on it a little more." But I never stopped thinking about the story. Now, sometimes, and this can happen,
Mhm.
sometimes I would let fear overtake me and I would say, "Oh, well, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going." It was still in my heart. It was
Mhm.
still in my heart. And so, do you want me to tell you who Mr. Vernon Dahmer was?
Yes.
He is my husband's grandfather, or he was my husband's grandfather. And he was a civil rights activist here in Mississippi in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. He was a very progressive man. I mean, I always said he was a man who lived before his time because he was a businessman, he was a farmer, he helped people in the community. He was a deacon, he was in the choir, he just did all the things. Um, he was biracial, and his grandfather, his great grandfather, had been was a plantation owner.
Mm.
And when slavery ended, this plantation owner gave all of his children and his mistress land. And an interesting fact, that land, much of that land is still in the family today.
Mm.
And so Mr. Vernon, he came from uh, ancestors who believed in, business and land and things like that. So, but even though he had all of those things going on in his life, he still cared about African Americans. And he said, if you don't vote, you don't count. And so he was out there trying to register to vote, trying to get other people registered to vote. That was his
Mm.
focus. And basically, when the Klan found out that the Ku Klux Klan, which is a vigilante group in the United States, when they found out that he was going to be taking poll taxes at his store, which you had to pay a poll tax to be able to even register to vote. When they found out he was going to be taking poll taxes at his store, they started plotting his
Mm.
demise, basically.
Mm.
But a lot of the focus is on that tragedy, but I wanted children to know about his resilience and his progressive spirit, and how he didn't allow societal norms to determine his path in life. He didn't
Mhm.
do that, but he basically sacrificed his life so African Americans could have the right to vote in the United States. Um, they firebombed his house, and he was such a brave man. He kept them off so his family could get out, but he was overtaken by the smoke and the fire and everything, and he passed. Um, it took 32 years to get justice for his death
Mm.
here in Mississippi, but the family finally got justice, um, and I believe it was 1998. But that I wanted children to know about his life. I wanted, and
So,
now they do. Now they do.
so important. I am I'm so moved. There's so many themes and layers in your story
Yeah.
that are your story, Mr. Vernon's story,
Yes.
that are so relevant today,
Yes.
and they
Yes.
need to be heard, especially today.
Right.
These themes aren't over. These themes aren't over. And I love how you included something that he would say on the cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
His voice is on the cover of your book.
It is. It is.
That's huge. Um, so hinted at this, but talk to me a little bit more about the nonfiction picture book, and if you could also show some examples of what a nonfiction picture book looks like, because I think
Okay.
yours is the first time I've ever heard of something like this.
Yeah. And when I was doing the research,
Hmm.
I went to the library and I was able to get more books like this.
Hmm.
So it's I mean, and they were beautiful books because when you think of nonfiction, historical, you don't usually put like illustrations with it. Let's see if I can
Here,
get. So
there
this
we
is
go.
one of my illustrations that
Yeah.
I just love because the woman, let's see if we can see.
Yep.
Can
In
you
the
see?
middle, yeah, Miss
Right.
Ellie Jewell, Mrs. Ellie
Yes.
Jewell. Hmm.
She is Mr. Vernon's widow, and
Mm.
she turned 100 this year in 2025. She still teaches Sunday school. She's still active in her sorority. She's still doing amazing things. And the young man at the bottom, that's
Hmm.
my son. He's the doctor.
Hmm.
And I had my illustrator create this image
Yeah.
because I wanted children to know and adults that because Mr. Vernon stood up for what was right,
Hmm.
we all still have opportunities to do
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
even though, of course, they're trying to take away those opportunities, but here's the lesson. Here's the lesson.
Hmm.
When Mr. Vernon was doing the things that he was doing in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we had Jim Crow laws here.
Right.
Jim Crow
Right.
laws were laws that tried to keep people bound down. But Mr.
Hmm.
Vernon, that didn't stop him from
Hmm.
accomplishing his goals. I
Hmm.
mean, he
Hmm.
still tried to accomplish his goals. He had
Hmm.
a grocery store, Dahmer Grocery,
Hmm.
and he had merchandise for people in the community, would give them their groceries on credit if he needed to. But he had a sawmill.
Hmm.
He had timber on his land, and then he went into business with this other man for them to do lumber. I mean,
Hmm.
he was resilient. So the lesson is, even though people are trying to keep you down,
Yeah.
look at Mr. Vernon. He didn't allow that. And so sometimes there are people have fears, like maybe teachers are like, well, I don't know if we can talk about your book or if we can buy your book. Well, if you can't buy it, then I'll go on to the next school.
Right.
And so right now, we are in the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum bookstore. There is a whole exhibit about Mr. Vernon and the tragedy and everything. And so the bookstore actually carries my book in their store.
That's
So,
huge. That's huge. Well, so were they planning this exhibit before your book came out
oh
or
yeah, oh yeah, oh
okay.
yeah. So after Mr. Vernon's death, President Lyndon Johnson sent a telegraph to Miss Ellie Joel because he was that well known. He was the president of the NAACP. I
Mhm.
mean, if he was a part of helping the Freedom Riders when they came to Mississippi to try and help people vote, and desegregate the buses and things like that. So the research, when you asked me about the
Yeah.
research was there. My father-in-law had kept all of the newspaper articles and things like that. I have a box of books and programs and old newspaper
Mhm.
articles that I went through. But here's the big thing.
Mhm.
My father-in-law, Vernon Dahmer Jr., he just passed in August at 95.
Mm,
And he
condolences.
was about 34 when his dad was murdered. And
Mm.
so I had a firsthand source to
Yeah.
interview.
Mhm.
And then I had Miss Ellie Joel
Mhm.
to interview. And then I had their youngest son, who was 12 at the time when his father was killed. I mean, Dennis Dahmer, he was a great resource. So I had, and then I had my husband, because my husband was actually 12 when his
Mhm.
grandfather was killed. And so I had all of these people that were just giving me firsthand glimpses into who Vernon Dahmer was.
Mhm.
And so it was just so amazing. And I was able to publish the book in January, and my father-in-law was able to see it. He came to my book launch party, and it was so special to him, and it's special to Miss Ellie Joel. When she picked up the phone and called me and said, "Rochelle, you did a good job," I was like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes."
I do want to circle back to you basically querying your family
Yeah,
and
yeah,
or your husband's family,
yeah.
and kind and that process. It
Yes.
sounds like it wasn't a hard no, but it wasn't an enthusiastic yes, and still
Yeah.
you persevered.
Right, right. Well, they had different concerns.
Yeah.
Um, Now, Mr. Vernon's daughter, she was 10 when he was killed, and
Mm.
she had a desire to write a book about her dad, which I didn't want to take that away from her. I didn't want to take it away from anyone since I was an in-law.
Mhm.
And so I yeah, I wanted to, tread lightly.
Mhm.
And when my father-in-law said, Rochelle, I want to write a book about my dad, that was like an open. But
Mhm.
it took a few years for him to finally, because he was very involved in the community, and it took a few years for him to finally stop and say, okay, let's do this, let's do this. And so when I got his buy-in, and
Mhm.
then I was able to get Dennis's buy-in, the youngest son, and my husband already knew I could do it. And so
Mhm.
Dennis, he got his mom to buy in, and so it was a long process. And they the Grand Wizard of the Klan was
Yeah.
finally convicted in 1998. And so, before that, Philip and I were married in 95. And I had actually seen the family on the news when I
Mm.
lived in another town. And I didn't know him. I didn't know it was his family. But when we met and, we started talking about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I saw them on the news. And
Mhm.
I thought then, wow, what a brave family, because they were being interviewed because the Medgar Evers case had just been resolved with that man going to prison. And so then the family thought, hey, there's a possibility we might be able to get justice for
Mm.
our loved one too. And
Right.
so I understood why they were, just a little
Yeah.
hesitant because of all of the investigations and things like that going on,
Mhm.
trying to bring this case back open. And so There were a lot of good people involved in the case being reopened, and the Grand Wizard being convicted of his
Yeah.
murder, and he was sent to prison. But like I said again, when I wrote the book, I didn't want to focus on that. I wanted children to know that regardless of your circumstances,
Yeah.
a lot has to do with your attitude and your belief in yourself. And when
Yeah.
I go to schools and I talk about Mr. Vernon, that's what I always want to tell them, that he had all kinds of obstacles against him, but
Yeah.
he was still resilient and determined to accomplish his goals. And that's what I try and instill in our children,
Yeah.
regardless of your obstacles. Let's stay focused and let's keep a good attitude. And that's what I would tell my students too. So,
Yeah. This is a very powerful spiritual message. And actually, one of the things that I was just thinking about as you were telling the story is this tension that exists between um, circumstance and environment,
mhm,
sort of the outside world, and then
yes,
the tugging of your inside world,
mhm,
that creative journey, that responding to that call from spirit or the universe.
yeah,
I know I'm going very woo woo. I was not
that's
expecting for
okay.
this to
That's
happen,
okay. Yes,
but the
that's
thing
what
that
it
I
is.
it is, and the thing is, this sounds like this book was actually uh, over a few decades. It needed the space of that time and the
Right,
space of healing as well as justice. It needed for all of these things to unfold in a certain way to be
right.
ready to appear as your nonfiction picture book in January of this year and at this time in history.
Time. This time. And it was like God was getting me ready. He was just getting me ready. And I thought it was, oh well, I can't do this, but all the time he was getting me ready. He was getting me
Yeah.
ready for this book and this moment. So it
And
was
not
it's
just
it's
you,
amazing.
the
Exactly. You're
entire
right.
community, right? The
Yes.
entire
Yes.
community and the readers that are
Right.
picking up this book.
Right.
So
Right.
tell me about the readers. So it looks like a book for young people.
Hmm.
Tell me
Hmm.
more or less the age range. I don't have children, so I'm a little bit distanced from that, but more or less the age range. It does sound like very mature content.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. It is.
mhm,
So I have a sweet spot. Fifth, sixth graders.
okay.
Fifth, sixth graders, but also adults,
Hmm.
because I talk about historical events. And so I say 9, 10 on up to adults,
Hmm.
because my first order on my Shopify store was from a man who wanted the book for himself.
Hmm.
And I mean, and a lot of people, because it's such a beautiful book,
It
um,
is.
people want to keep it on their coffee tables and keep it there, because but it's such an easy read. A lot of time historical stories can be heavy and just kind of difficult, small print, just kind of
Hmm.
difficult to read. But this book, the print is nice and big, and you can see
Yeah.
it. Even though it's for kids, adults are still going to learn about a man who is resilient, or who was resilient and determined to have his goals in his life. You know, um, we're going through a lot in the United States right now, and
Hmm.
the unemployment rate is about 8.5 for African Americans and African American men and things like that. And, I'm this story is a great story to
Yeah.
help you with your resilience. When you see a man who had everything against him, but he was still able to overcome, still able to overcome. And he had good family support. Yes,
Hmm.
he did. Yes, he
Hmm.
did. But the country that we lived in during that time, the state that we lived in the South, it was difficult. So so I mean, I've gone to churches and shared his story with the entire congregation during Black History Month. And
Hmm.
so it's but when I go into schools, fifth and sixth grade,
That
fifth and
it's so powerful. Yeah. Go ahead.
and also it's informational text.
Hmm.
And what I made a teacher copy also, and I have
Oh.
vocabulary in the back.
Hmm.
And the vocabulary, I created a teacher lesson plan. And so the teacher can use the book as her guide as she reads it with her students. She doesn't have to do anything. I have the lesson plans there. I have writing assignments
Wonderful.
there where the resources are there for the teachers. And if I could, while I'm just looking, Vernon Dahmer, um, our state continues to recognize his bravery. We have a park named after him. In 2016, the Mississippi legislature recognized his bravery and gave the family a plaque in his honor. I told you about the Civil Rights Museum. The
Hmm.
National Civil Rights Museum in Washington, D.C., which, of course, I don't know if you know, but it's being a lot of the different exhibits are being moved out, but Mr. Vernon has
Mm.
an exhibit there also. He's in the Museum of the Courageous, which is
Mm.
located in San Francisco. And, and then, of course, the man who called for his death was convicted. So I think that over the years, the state and has tried to move forward.
Yeah.
In some ways, but every day it seems like we're taking about 20 steps back.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to make a conscious effort to know that there are people like you who
Mhm.
are still making those steps forward, like you, Mr. Vernon, and the community around you that are still making those steps forward, no matter how um, strong and how accelerated the pushback is. Um, and I think that is also maybe an underlying message for audiences today and readers today, particularly our young readers,
Right,
is not
right.
to be discouraged,
Not to be
that
discouraged.
there will be obstacles and there will be some strong pushback,
Yeah.
and that a community is needed. A community is needed, and that those of us who can assemble around somebody like Mr. Vernon or like yourself, to find those communities and drive those communities and advance them. I see you have the book in the background in your
Oh,
set
yes.
in your office. It's so
Oh, yes.
wonderful.
Oh,
It's
yes.
so wonderful. So okay, people can get this book everywhere. Can they also get it online?
They can get it online. Now, let me mention this to you.
Sure.
So, when you are self publishing,
Hmm.
of course, Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing is amazing. They are, you can say a lot of things about Amazon, but one thing for self publishers, they are making dreams come true. There is another option, and that is Ingram Spark. What
Hmm.
Ingram Spark does is they allow your books to be available in bookstores online. Now, they may
Hmm.
not be in the bookstore physically, but if someone said, you know what? I want to see if I can get this book from Walmart because the book is in with Ingram Spark. They could go online. You could Google this book right now and it would be online in Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million online. So
Mhm.
that's another thing. Have it on Amazon. And I think from what I've heard on different podcasts, Amazon is trying to get in there with Ingram Spark too. But Ingram
Mhm.
Spark has a beautiful, oh my gosh, they publish books for bookstores. So
Right.
you are going to have to get, um, you're going to get a better, a beautiful product, is what I
Mhm.
want to say. But Amazon is great too. Kindle Direct Publishing is great too. And there are ways that you can do this on a budget. You know, I was retired. And so I had to find ways to self publish my book on a budget. Now I had to
Mhm.
go out and get little part time jobs too,
Mhm.
but I did this on a budget, and I didn't ask anyone for money. I all of my money went into this,
Mhm.
and it took me about a year and a half to get it finished. I worked with an illustrator on Fiverr, which is a platform for freelancers. My illustrator is in Kenya, and we communicated through Fiverr. And I told him, I said, I'm retired. Can we do a little bit at a time? And he said, sure. And
Mhm.
so when I would get extra money, I would say, okay, I'm ready to do an illustration. And that took a year and a half. Finally, my husband said, here's a credit card, get your illustration so you can get finished. But I still had to pay that back. I still had to pay
Yeah.
it back. But it is possible to do this on a budget. Now, Ingram Spark, the copies are a little more because I wanted my color to be vibrant. Um, but still, it's excellent, excellent product. So that's just
Mhm.
another option if you want to get your book online to be available in bookstores.
Awesome. Well, we just got like a double lesson. One in Ingram and Amazon because I'm going through
Mhm.
my own Ingram KDP
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
getting my book ready process.
Right.
um,
And
and the other was about where to get your book. So
okay.
we can get them in lots of museums and lots of
Right.
places in real
Right.
life. You could get them in your libraries too.
Yes, yes. Well, I have one. I'm working on
Mhm.
two. Our Hattiesburg Library just it's on their shelf now. The Jackson Public Library, Jackson, Mississippi, they have ordered it, and so I'm hoping it's going to be in all of their libraries. And let me mention this to you. I was thinking about
Sure.
this. Of course, when you are self-publishing and you're uploading to Kindle Direct Publishing and Ingram Sparks, there are certain specifications, measurements, dimensions that you have to have. But if you don't know how to do that, there are people on Fiverr who can help you do that. Now, and I needed them to help me. I have since learned through trial and error how to upload my own book, but for someone, if you're just starting out and you don't know, there are people out there who can help you. Um, make sure that your book, because all of them have certain dimensions to upload to their platforms.
Yes, all of them have different dimensions,
Right, right, right,
even for
right.
the same book. So what works
Yes,
on
yes.
one platform does not work on the other
Right,
platform.
right, right. Exactly, exactly, exactly. But I wanted to mention I have a Shopify store, Shelly's Creative Life and Books,
Oh,
where
awesome.
I wanted to keep stock here, where
Mhm.
I could like have a personal mail out and be able to sign it for them. And so Shelly's Creative Life and Books. I have a YouTube channel, Shelly's Creative Author Life, where I
Where are you? Oh no, I lost you for a hot second. Okay, we lost
sorry
her
about
for.
that.
Okay, so Yay, welcome back.
You
Okay,
there?
so are you so I'm here. I can hear you loud and clear. Oh no. Oh, can you hear me? I'm gonna screen for a hot second.
Oh man.
All right, let's see if we can find you. Are you back? Can you hear me? Oh, I don't think so. Oh no. Okay. She looks like she's trying to figure out where she is. So, Shelly's Creative Life and Books, her YouTube channel. Let's see if can you hear us now? Can you hear us now? I don't think she can see or hear us. Oh gosh, I am so sorry about this. I don't know. I don't know what's happened. Let's see if we can send her a private chat. Can figure that out. Oh no. Yeah, I think she's lost me. See if I can send her on her merry way. See. I'm gonna have her try to please sign in. Okay.
I
Are
am
you
so
there?
sorry. A call
You're
came through.
you're back. Oh, okay, that's why.
A
Great.
call came through. Oh my goodness. I
No,
apologize.
no worries. This is the magic of live TV. Okay, so
Right, right, right.
your call cut you off while you were saying the most important part of your message, which is where people can find you. So they can find you on
Yes.
Shelly's Creative Life and Books.com,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That's my Shopify store.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
And
my
then you've got your
Substack,
YouTube. Oh,
my my Substack
tick,
is author Shelly Dahmer. And then my YouTube is Shelly's Creative Author Life. And I
that is
talk about
so.
all of this self-publishing and my journey. And so I'd love for people to follow me, subscribe. I'd appreciate that so much.
I am going to follow your YouTube channel because even though I've come over the hump of,
Yeah. I'm
getting
so
my
proud of you.
first,
Yeah.
thank you very much. But I also know that by the time I finish the next book, everything will have changed and I'll need to go back to the experts who've endured this more recently than I have.
Yes, 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 yes.
So, oh, anyway, Shelly, everything about our conversation today, I'm very inspired. Your work and your approach to life, especially in this start a new phase,
Yes.
it beautifully demonstrates the golden multidimensionality of Black and Brown creatives that
Yes.
I don't talk about directly in my book, but it's alluded to in the stories. You've gone from educator to author, low content books to this powerful historical narrative. I think this book should be included with HBCUs.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I think that I mean, I know a couple of uh, educators with PhDs that I'm sure would be really well served by a book such as yours with the teacher copy and
Yes.
the topics and questions to spur discussions that need to be
Yes.
had with young
Yes.
people.
Right.
um, so go ahead.
I just said we've got to let our young people know
Yeah.
about, people like this. You know, just and but I think one of the things that's occurring is because of all of the um, chaos that we're going through, it's pushing people to learn more about their history.
That's true. And I think we're seeing before there was a movement thanks to social media and just the diversity of content that's coming
Mhm,
towards us. There
mhm.
was, I think, we were trying to keep up with consuming
Right.
all of this media at the pace that
Yeah.
it's coming towards us. And I
Right.
think now, with some of the chaos that you're talking about, people are getting a bit more selective
Right.
about
Right.
what kind of content am I going to consume,
Mhm,
or
mhm,
will I make myself available to all of this content all of the time, or will I
mhm.
be a bit more selective? Um,
Right.
and now we're talking about something that you and I talked about when we were kids, youngins,
Yeah.
um, critical thinking, right?
Yeah, oh,
Asking the
yes.
questions,
Exactly.
asking the
Exactly.
questions and hearing both sides of a story and being able to say, like, I don't think that was right. You
Right.
know, do we think that's right? Do we think
Yeah.
that's the way things are supposed to be because they always were this way? Or is
Right.
there something that we can do to change things? So,
Yes.
yeah. So I see your book as and I was so pleased to hear that you said that there was an award presented to the family in
Yes.
2016.
Exactly. The Mississippi legislature recognized his bravery, which
Yeah.
was huge.
Well, 2026 is a 10-year anniversary of that
Yes.
recognition. So
That's right.
another
Yeah.
reason to promote the book and
Right.
to get
Right.
it out in front of the broader public. So
Yeah. And it's
just
been
putting that in there.
2026, it'll be 60 years
Yeah.
since his death. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So on that note, I final question for you will
Okay.
be, what's on the horizon for you? What's your next creative goal?
Well, I'm working on a manuscript for a book two. Because I was in Montgomery, Alabama,
Mhm.
and I was doing a book talk to a group of adults, and they were like, "Well, what happened after that? What happened after?"
Mm.
And my husband and I started thinking, yes. And so there's a possibility. We'll have to see what the family says, but there's a possibility that there might be a follow-up book. And then someone could buy a set and have his biography and also what happened after everything. So we'll see. We'll see. But it'll still be an informational text. And
Mhm.
I will still put the standards, you know, the state we have here in the United States, we have the state standards that schools have to go by. And so what I do is I tie the standards in to the book, and that way teachers know that they're following the standards for the state or for their particular state, um, and for the Department of Education. So,
Wonderful. This is big. This is big. Um, I am so glad that you joined today's show and that you shared your book. One final time, share the cover of your book, say its
okay.
title, say where folks can get their own copy. I'm gonna move myself off of the screen there.
Okay.
There we go. Oops, the other way around. Oop.
So this is If You Don't Vote, You Don't Count, Vernon Dahmer's Fight for Equality. And you can get this in my Shopify store at www.shellyscreativelifeandbooks.com. You can get it on Amazon. And if you have a bookstore in your community, they're able to get it, um, and it's online. They can order it for you anywhere in the country.
Mhm.
they can order the book online. So, and
Excellent.
I thank you so much for this opportunity. I am just so grateful. I'm always grateful when someone allows me to talk about Mr. Vernon's book and my writing, but I'm even more grateful that you are across the world and you're asking me to talk about my book. I am, oh my goodness, I'm so, so grateful to that you
I
gave me this platform to talk about my creative life and my book.
thank you. Thank you so much. I do hope to see you again on Golden Creatives Talk. That is all the time that we
Anytime.
have for today's episode. Thank you, Shelly. You can find out about more about me and Golden Creatives Talk at brownbeyondborders.substack.com. And if you're interested in my own work, my book is available now wherever ebooks are sold. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, Shelly, Shelly.
Shelley.
I had a guest a few weeks back named Sherry, and I
Okay.
just anyway. Join us next time for another conversation with Golden Creatives Talk. Thanks so much, Shelly, and we will see you all in 2026. Thank you.